Now with all the latest stories making the headlines this afternoon, it's the ITV News.
A losing battle to keep their son alive. The Court of Appeal rules Archie Battersby's doctors can lawfully stop providing life support treatment. Also this lunchtime, the greatest workforce crisis in its history. A damning report on the state of the NHS in England.
We have not bitten the bullet on training enough new doctors for the future. And that's because we've always depended on immigration.
Scotland's shame, 448 examples of institutional racism found in Scottish cricket. And it's coming home, man. Eurovision will be held in the UK next year.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. In the last half an hour, the Court of Appeal judges have ruled doctors can lawfully stop providing life support treatment to 12-year-old Archie Battersby. He suffered brain damage 3 months ago. Ever since, his parents have been trying to persuade medics and the courts to keep him alive. A lawyer representing Archie's parents said his mother thought her son had been trying to breathe independently. But today, judges ruled against the family. Sejal Carrier is at the Court of Appeal. Sejal, take us through what happened.
Yes, Nina, it looks like this could be the end of the legal route for Archie's parents, Holly and Paul, after judges here at the Court of Appeal ruled that doctors can now lawfully stop life support for Archie. And they agreed with doctors that it would not be in the 12-year-old's interests for it to continue. This is what and this is how the judges delivered their decision earlier today.
After careful thought, we refuse permission to appeal on all of the grounds, including the ground that was advanced orally at the hearing. The result, therefore, is that the application for an appeal is dismissed.
It is a devastating blow for his parents, who have fought so hard in the courts. They believe that he should continue receiving life support because his heart is still beating and that he is, in their words, a fighter. But doctors have argued that Archie suffered catastrophic brain damage 3 months ago after he was found with a ligature around his neck. His mother believes that he was taking part in an online challenge that had gone wrong. Today, through her lawyer, his mother, Holly, argued that this particular judgment should be postponed after Archie's father, Paul, was taken ill and rushed to hospital shortly before the judges were about to deliver their decision. And through her lawyer, she also told the court that she believes that Archie tried to breathe independently twice in the last couple of days. But judges here at the Court of Appeal said that they believe that it was in Archie's best interest that they delivered this decision today, and that it was in his best interests that life support should now stop.
Sejal Carrier, thank you. A new report into the state of the NHS in England says understaffing is creating a serious risk to patient safety, and the government has no credible plan to fix it. The cross-party Health and Social Care Committee of MPs described the situation in the NHS and social care as the greatest workforce crisis in their history. On top of thousands of vacancies, countless staff are off sick with anxiety, stress or depression. Our political correspondent Libby Vina has the story.
They saved countless lives during a pandemic which is still far from over. But the relentless pressures on staff in the NHS and social care have taken their toll. MPs say there's an unprecedented recruitment crisis, with thousands of highly trained staff leaving the NHS and no proper plan to replace them. This doctor, based at a London teaching hospital, says the last 2 years have been relentless.
Obviously, dealing with the pandemic, we are also affected by the pandemic personally. And I think that's been the biggest reason for a lot of pressure, because when you are sick, or, when you are sick yourself, how do you then look after those who are sick as well? I think that's been the challenge, because, we've had lots of people go sick, and then this then creates a lot of pressure for those who are left on the ground.
Today's report says nearly 1 million extra staff will be needed in the NHS and social care by the end of the decade. Shortages now include around 12,000 doctors and 50,000 nurses and midwives. Meanwhile, waiting lists are at a record high, with 6.5 million patients waiting for treatment. The former Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, admits not enough was done previously to boost numbers, including on his watch.
The real issue is that over many governments, we have not bitten the bullet on training enough new doctors for the future. And that's because we've always depended on immigration. We've always thought we can fill the gap if we don't have enough doctors in the NHS by bringing people in from overseas.
Labour says NHS funding hasn't grown fast enough under the Conservatives, and they've failed to deal with the recruitment crisis.
Many doctors are retiring early, in part because of the pension arrangements for doctors. That could be sorted out very easily. But also, we know that we need more doctors and nurses. There are huge vacancies in our NHS, and we need to get the people into our universities to be studying those subjects so that we are boosting our workforce. The government don't have a plan for that, and we're seeing the consequences.
In a statement, the Department of Health insisted 4,000 more doctors and nearly 10,000 nurses have been recruited. But the MP's report suggests this simply won't be enough to resolve the crisis.
Libby, of course, we've known about this problem for a long time, but it seems to be a problem that is getting much, much worse.
Yes, well, one thing that both Labour and the Conservatives agree on is that in the past, as a country, Britain has relied too much on recruiting doctors and nurses from the EU and elsewhere. Now, of course, we've left the EU, and it's true to say that during the pandemic, many nurses and doctors from abroad actually chose to go home. Now, it takes something like 5 to 6 years to train a doctor. And while Jeremy Hunt did get a big funding settlement when he was the Health Secretary under Theresa May for the NHS, the fact is that the doctors that started training then still haven't qualified. So that is still a huge problem. Add to that the fact that a large number of doctors have decided to retire early as a result partly of the pandemic, particularly GPs, and you can see that there is a very serious problem within the NHS. Now, it hasn't featured very largely in the current leadership contest between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, but I think whoever does get the top job in the race to succeed Boris Johnson, I think you can safely say that the NHS is going to feature very highly on their list of things to do.
Libby Vina, thank you. Racism in cricket. This time it's not Yorkshire, but Scotland. The independent review into allegations of racism in Scottish cricket was officially published today. Yesterday, the entire board of Cricket Scotland resigned. The review was ordered following allegations made by 2 former Scotland cricket players in November. The review found nearly 450 examples of institutional racism. 68 individual allegations have been referred for further investigation. This includes 31 allegations of racism against 15 different people, 2 clubs and 1 regional association. The report's authors recommended Cricket Scotland be temporarily placed under special measures by the National Agency for Sport until at least next year. Chloe Keedy is with me. It's been described as a wake-up call for Scottish sport.
Yeah, it is damning. The review was carried out by Plan for Sport, an independent equality and diversity organisation, and they spoke to nearly 1,000 people, including players, board members and staff members at Cricket Scotland. And from those conversations emerged allegations of racial abuse, use of inappropriate language, favouritism towards white children from public schools. 68 of those allegations, as you say, have been referred for further investigation, and some of those have been passed to the police. Now, this review took place over the course of 6 months, and it also found a lack of any diversity or anti-racist training, no consistent process for handling racist incidents, and a lack of diversity right the way from board level to the coaching workforce and amongst younger players. They used 31 tests to measure the scale of the problem, and Cricket Scotland failed on almost all of them.
Cricket Scotland has failed in 29 of those 31 indicators. So the review would conclude that the processes, attitudes and behaviours of Cricket Scotland meet the Macpherson definition of institutional racism.
OK, that's the conclusion then. Take us through in detail the recommendations.
So there are 3 key recommendations. One of those is that Cricket Scotland is placed into special measures, but also that one of Scotland's regional cricket associations, the Western District Cricket Union, is also placed into special measures. And finally, that Cricket Scotland addresses the backlog in the referrals that have been generated just as a result of this review. Now, the interim chief executive of Cricket Scotland described today as a watershed moment for cricket in Scotland. He said it was clear that significant cultural change must happen and that it must happen quickly.
Chloe Keedy, thank you very much. Thank you. Still to come this lunchtime, the UK will stage Eurovision, but which city should host it? And the pub where Last Orders once told is booming. Before that, there was a new warning that the chaos at Dover and Folkestone we've seen over the last few days could be repeated this coming weekend. The first weekend of the holiday getaway saw long queues as people tried to get on ferries and use the Eurotunnel services. Let's go live to Dover and join our reporter John Ryle. John, passengers told to brace for yet more disruption. How is it right now?
Well, right now, the Port of Dover is finally flowing fairly freely again, so much so that some of the lanes are not in force, hence the red crosses you can see behind me, and we're told it's a similar picture at the Eurotunnel terminal at Folkestone, things flowing well there too, but that is doing little to allay concerns about the prospect of a summer of chaos on cross-channel routes, with next weekend already a big concern. Now, this weekend showed how rapidly things can get so very serious post-Brexit, with the need to stamp all passports here, overwhelming these lanes, overwhelming the port. And over 3 days we saw thousands of holidaymakers and lorry drivers stuck in vehicles for up to 22 hours in some cases, in queues stretching for mile after mile on the M20 and the M2, the 2 motorways leading to Dover. And local government leaders and transport organisations are saying solutions must be found. This weekend's chaos was caused by the slower processing of those vehicles because of passport checks, huge demand of course because it was the start of the big summer getaway, but also caused by a failure, we're told, of French border control staff to adequately crew the increased number of passport booths here. And there are concerns now that we could see all those factors at play again next weekend and right through the summer, unless ways are found to build more flex and more resilience into this system.
John Ryle, thank you very much. Thank you. To America now, where US firefighters are battling a rapidly moving wildfire near California's Yosemite National Park. The massive oak fire has been raging since Friday and has consumed an area more than half the size of Paris. Thousands have been forced to flee their homes. The state governor has declared a state of emergency. A major fire has also broken out in southern Greece, threatening the famous ancient Olympia site and destroying homes in nearby villages. Greece has seen nearly 150 separate wildfires across the country in just the past 3 days alone. And Pope Francis has landed in Edmonton to kick off his 5-day tour of Canada. His visit will focus on an apology for the Roman Catholic Church's role in the abuse of Indigenous children. Between 1881 and 1996, more than 150,000 Indigenous children were separated from their families and brought to residential schools. Many children were starved, beaten and sexually abused in a system that Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission called a cultural genocide. It is next stop the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham after the World Athletic Championships in Oregon in America drew to a close. The Games here open in Birmingham on Thursday night with the opening ceremony. On the final day in America, Great Britain secured 2 more medals. Kelly Hodgkinson added to her Olympic silver medal in the 800 metres as she finished agonisingly short of American Athing Mu. The 20-year-old posted her season best, but it proved not enough as she finished just 0.08 seconds behind Mu. The result was a repeat of the Tokyo Olympics last year, where Hodgkinson was also pipped by her American rival. And Great Britain also took bronze in the women's 4x400 metre relay, the final event of the competition in Oregon. They lost out to the USA and Jamaica coming third. The bronze took Great Britain's overall tally to 7, their best haul since 2015. It has been confirmed the UK will host the Eurovision Song Contest in 2023 on behalf of Kent. Next this lunchtime, the 400-year-old pub saved from closure by its customers. 10 years ago, people in a Gloucestershire village rallied round to buy shares in the Fleece Inn to keep it afloat. And as Sally Biddulph reports, business is now booming.
It may have first opened its doors in the 17th century, but the Fleece Inn in Hillesley in Gloucestershire is celebrating a rather special 10th birthday. For the past decade, this pub has been owned by the people, for the people, and it means the world to locals.
Very proud of what we've achieved here. To keep a pub like this, which is thriving in the current climate, is wonderful.
Just a good local pub. Is, you know, after work to come down and have a couple of pints.
This is where, you know, most people will come and just get to meet each other, coffee mornings and those sorts of things. So you don't have to drink beer if you don't want to. You can just come along and just have a bit of a social.
When the Fleece was threatened with closure in 2012, the village rallied round. They founded the Hillesley Community Pub Limited and bought shares, raising enough money to buy the freehold.
We have over 100 shareholders, and the most thrilling moment really of the whole thing for me was when we went from the pledges that people had said we're going to buy a share to collecting the money, and every single person put their money in, and we knew we were onto something then. We knew that the village was right behind us, so it was fantastic.
Over the past 10 years, the Fleece has thrived. In 2018, it got the royal seal of approval when Prince Charles popped in for a drink. That very same year, it was named Best Pub in the South West by the Campaign for Real Ale. The landlords who rent the pub from the local community company are proud that the Fleece is the beating heart of the village.
The pub is the hub of the community. There's lots of events, there's lots of groups that like to use the pub.
But not just that, it's also our beers. Our beers are very important. So it's cask beers. We've got 6 beers on, so it's, yeah, really good beers.
So here's to the next 10 years of the Fleece Inn, whether you're a shareholder, a villager or a visitor. Cheers. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
A reminder of our main stories. The parents of a 12-year-old boy on life support have lost an appeal to continue treatment. Archie Battersby was found unconscious at his home in Southend in April. Doctors at the Royal London Hospital believe he is brainstem dead. Today, judges ruled against the family, who have been fighting to keep Archie on life support.
After careful thought, we refuse permission to appeal on all of the grounds, including the ground that was advanced orally at the hearing. The result, therefore, is that the application for an appeal is dismissed.
The large number of unfulfilled NHS job vacancies is posing a serious risk to patient safety, according to a report by MPs. It found England is now short of 12,000 hospital doctors and more than 50,000 nurses and midwives, calling this the worst workforce crisis in NHS history.
Over many governments, we have not bitten the bullet on training enough new doctors for the future. And that's because we've always depended on immigration. We've always thought we can fill the gap if we don't have enough doctors in the NHS by bringing people in from overseas.
And an independent report into racism in cricket in Scotland should serve as a wake-up call after it delivered a damning indictment of institutional racism within the sport and its governing body. That's it. We're back tomorrow just before 1. Bye-bye.